Happy holiday season, zombies! So, some of you might not know who Krampus is, and yes, you can pronounce it Krampus, or Krampus, or however the heck you want to pronounce it, but I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I'm gonna go with Krampus because that fills my Philly accent needs. Anyway, so Krampus is actually kind of the opposite of Santa Claus. He punishes kids who are naughty rather than Santa, who rewards kids who are nice. He is typically depicted this way as kind of like this anthropomorphic demon beasted thing with hooves and horns and a demony face. However, my Krampus will actually be inspired by the movie Krampus that just came out this year by Michael Dougherty. They did not do the typical Krampus demony face. They actually did a kind of old man, crazy looking Santa with a dislocated jaw and a crazy tongue and an old face. So I am doing mine off of that. Everything you see here I made entirely from scratch, and I'm going to teach you in this tutorial how to do all of it. Krampus has been a very popular look this year, probably because of the movie coming out, but I haven't seen anyone do the actual movie interpretation of his face. So this is how I would recreate it, and I hope you guys enjoy it and learn something new. So this tutorial is about 90% prep work, because we're essentially putting the whole costume together. The face of Krampus in the movie didn't move. His jaw didn't hinge and unhinge. It was kind of just hanging there dislocated. Spoiler alert, sorry. So, that means this is actually a perfect opportunity to use the same technique that we used for the Paranormal Activity tutorial. We don't need to have moving parts if we're staying true to the movie. So I'm starting out with a life cast of my face, but you could do this on a mannequin head that you're able to sculpt on. You could do this on a flat surface even if you wanted to, because it doesn't need to conform to your face. The reason I would suggest a life cast if you can make one or if you have one is because that is the best way to make sure that your sizing is accurate, the spacing of your eyes is accurate, and it's going to fit well on your face. But it doesn't need to conform to the curve of your nose or anything like that, since it's going to be kind of a hollow shell instead of a normal prosthetic. Until I can make my own full video on tips that help me with sculpting, I will leave some down in the description box below that are my personal favorites that I think are very thorough and helpful for you guys. Essentially, I'm taking small bits of clay and I'm slowly building them up in a rough face shape, and then I'm adding character by making the nose longer, kind of flaring the nostrils up, making the brow thicker and kind of droopy on the sides of the eyes. You kind of just want to play with it until you start getting a shape that looks like an old guy. And you'll see here in the bridge of the nose, I actually started doing some weird wrinkly stuff that isn't at all how real faces wrinkle, and I ended up changing it later, so I would suggest that you also look at anatomically correct pictures of old people with lots of wrinkles, because that'll help a lot too. And here you'll see that I added a makeshift tongue and teeth really quick, just to be sure that the size of the mouth was going to be good for those things. Sometimes you need to piece everything together to get the full picture. I'm using sulfur-free plastiline clay for those who are wondering, which is basically just a non-drying clay, so you can forever keep shaping it to whatever you need it to be. The only thing is that it does need to be warm to be malleable, and that is a little bit of a pain in the butt because, at least for me, it seems to get cold and very hard to work with after a couple minutes, so I'm constantly heating this clay up with a hairdryer on the hot setting. If you can make a more traditional mold of this, don't forget to add lots of skin texture and wrinkle details. Because I'm showing you this look in a more accessible way, doing just latex layers right on top of our sculpt, you don't want to spend too much time on the details because they'll be lost anyway. When you feel like it's ready, coat it with something that will prevent the latex from sticking to your sculpt too much. You can use anything from a mold release spray to Vaseline to even lotion probably. I'm using a generous coating of isopropyl murostate, which I usually use to remove my prosthetics, but make sure you really get in areas that are prone to getting stuck, like the inner rim of the eyes, corners of the nose, and mouth. Any place deep or that meets your life cast at a 90-degree angle or more acute than that needs to be greased up quite a bit. Then with a disposable brush or sponge, coat your entire sculpt in liquid latex. I'm not going much past the edges of my sculpt, but I am covering the entire eye and mouth insides, which I will cut out later, but making it one big piece I find makes it easier to remove later. Because we want this to be a standalone piece that holds its shape without any backing, you want to make sure that you do this with lots of layers, letting them dry in between each. I did somewhere between 10 and 15 probably. If you can still see the clay underneath when it's dry, it's not enough layers to be able to stand on its own when it's peeled off. While I'm waiting for some layers to dry, I make some other pieces we're going to need. I shaped a bunch of little teeth using a lightweight air drying clay you can find at a craft store, And as I shape them, I stick them into the little indents I left for 4 top teeth and 1 bottom tooth to be sure they'll fit somewhere. I made way more teeth than I needed though because I like having options in case some just don't want to stick well in the spaces once they're dry and hardened. I also made this creepy pointy tongue from cotton balls dipped in liquid latex, sculpting it right in my hands until it was the shape that I wanted, and then I laid it down over the side of this bottle so that it would dry with a curve to it. Another side project I'm doing is using more air drying clay to shape a horn. We'll only need one because it's going to serve as a mold for both. Roll it out and curve it to your liking, then set it aside to dry and harden for a full day. Before you peel off your face, make sure you powder the heck out of it. This makes removing it much easier because without it, the latex that you're peeling back could stick to the other parts of your old man face, and we don't want that. Then peel away, but do so very, very slowly and carefully, powdering as you go. Take extra care in those tough corners that I mentioned earlier. When it's off, it should hold its shape like this. Cut out the eyes, mouth, and nostrils so you can see, drink, and breathe. I left a small band of the tops and bottoms of the inside of the mouth intact so that I'd have a place to adhere it to my face. Otherwise, there would be no point of contact at the mouth. After you've done that, put it back on your sculpts because we have more work to do on this and we need a firm backing to do so. I'm taking alcohol-activated paints to do this part, but you could use grease paints, water-activated paints, or really whatever makeup you have that you find works. I'm first doing a skin tone base, and then I'm adding a light gray all over to make him more than Mikey pale, and then adding oranges and browns in the wrinkles and hollows of the cheeks to really bring out their depth. I usually sit the color on and then dilute it with a bunch of alcohol so it really sinks in and runs into all the deep spots with a more naturally painted finish. It's common even for normal prosthetics to be pre-painted before application because it saves time and comfort for the model having to wear the makeup, but it's necessary in this case because you wouldn't be able to paint this on your face without indenting your chin or wrinkles since there's no backing of the prosthetic in this method. Remember to paint your gums and those 2 bars of skin in the mouth that you left. Use a dark color like black so it won't be noticeable when we're wearing it later. We want it to blend right into the chin. I also put some subtle yellows and greens around the eyes to give him a bit of a sicky vibe. The back side of this tongue reminds me of pizza. But anyway, yes, you get the idea. Paint the tongue too. Paint a really light yellow wash over the teeth because Krampus can't be looking like he uses white strips. Next, it's time for the magical world of crepe wool, aka facial hair in a bag. You can't be anti-claus without a claus-like beard. You can order this stuff online or find it in some FX theater and wig stores. Unravel it, pull it apart at the length that you need it, spread the hair apart with your fingers, lay some spirit gum or other FX adhesive under the chin, cut off the top area of hair that you're working with, and then stick it right on. It's that simple. Keep working from the underneath up, and when you get to the very top, try to pull some pieces away as you lay them so that the hairline is a little more natural looking. Here's a close-up so you can see what I'm talking about. I like to use the end of a comb like this to push down as I pull some hair away underneath from the very top of the hairline. Don't forget, a full beard requires a mustache and some sideburns. Shape the entire thing with scissors when you're done gluing, if need be. Glue in your teeth using spirit gum, but be careful. It's kind of like playing Operation, especially when one falls in. It's definitely a game of patience. Once you finish that, you're done with the face, until we put our face on our face. Anyway, on to the hood and horns. Okay, for the hood, it's real basic and rough because I know virtually nothing about making clothes, so if I can do it, you can do it. I start by drawing out a simple but oversized hood pattern, which basically just looks like the side profile of a hood. You can Google or use actual hood patterns if you fancy, but freehanding it worked just fine for me. You'll need 2 halves of this shape, so make sure you cut out 2 of them and then sew them together. Then when you turn it inside out, you shall have a hood like this. I also cut slits on each side at the bottom of the hood so that some of the long ends would sit in front of my shoulders and the rest would be in the back. It makes no sense, I know, but I told you that I don't know how to make clothes. It worked, and that's all that matters. Anyway, then for the white trim, I just hot glued a strip of it around the front edge of the hood because I kind of gave up on the sewing thing. Hot glue is my forte. For the horns, I'm taking my now hardened horn mold from earlier and wrapping it in saran wrap. Then I'm laying strips of plaster bandages down around the entire thing, making sure every part is fully covered and connected. You can use any kind of paper mache for this, but you might need more than 1 layer for thinner materials like paper. When it's dry, cut a seam down the back of it and pull the mold out so that the horn is hollow. You want them hollow because they're much lighter that way and easier to attach to a headband. You'll need to go over the horn once more to patch up that open seam and to make sure that the whole thing is really strong. Then the headband part is a little tricky, and I'm sure there's other ways you could do this, but this is what I found out worked for me. I wrapped a thick wire around a headband a few times and left 2 long ends sticking up like so. Do that for each horn. Then stick the horns onto the wire prongs. You may be able to just shove them through, or you may need to poke little holes in them. Next, start hot gluing the crap out of that to your headband base. If your horns are as heavy as mine, this won't be enough to hold them upright. So I flipped them upside down and hot glued a bunch of heavy hemp rope around the base of the horns and headbands until they were nice and sturdy. I'm also gluing little clips to the headband for an extra anchor. I cut big slits in the hood to be able to slide it over the horns, but then I hot glued the seams back together. To paint the horns, I dipped my brush in a little bit of water, then a little bit of black paint, and then I lightly brushed so that I left a lot of the texture visible. And then all your prep work is finally done. Onto the application. Oh, hello! For those of you who are new, I lost my eyebrows in a shark attack. First thing you want to do is hold this up to your face once it's all done and prepped, and you're going to want to outline the spaces in between the mask, the eyes particularly, and the mouth. Can you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to do that now with cream paint. I have a cripple in my mouth. I'm going to outline with a pretty neutral light color, just like this green cream paint, because we don't want to make it too dark just in case we fluff it all up. You know what, heck, outline the outside too, so that you know how far in you got to make your skin all gray. You feel me? Great. If you look weird, you did a good job. So we want to make the inside of our mouth dark because you basically don't want to be able to see that you've got skin inside your sand mouth, because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to take a dark red cream paint and probably a black or brown cream paint and go all inside of this area and a little bit past the line, because remember, when we glue it on, sometimes it doesn't always line up exactly how you think it will, or you'll end up seeing more at certain angles, so just go past as a safety net. Excellent. For the eyeballs, I'm going to start to try to match the base of that grayish skin tone. And I'm also going to do that around this perimeter area because we want it obviously to blend when we glue it on. I am also doing this before I glue it on because I have these scleras in and they are not prescription, and I need prescription lenses to see, so I can't see really well. So to make the application as easy as possible, it's just best for me to do it this way. If you are applying this on someone else, you should probably do all these things after they're on. And I'm just ripping up a sponge, bruise style, like in the bruise tutorial and some other tutorials, to again get that kind of patchy look. To try to get the gray, I'm using a gray cream paint around my eyes because you don't want to use alcohol paints around your eyes for obvious reasons, because it'll burn. You can also pull this up from time to time to make sure that generally working for you. Right now I think my eyes are maybe a little too gray for the inside of this, so I'm gonna break it up with some yellow. So that looks a little bit better, and then I want to darken up the whole thing a little bit so that his eye sockets are a bit darker. Oh! Take the inside of your mask, take some spirit gum, and you want to lay it around the outside perimeter. If you had a regular prosthetic that wasn't sort of just the shell, it was like normal and it was fitted to a face, you would want to glue it from the center out. I have a video on that if you need more specifics, but you usually start from the nose or the center of the prosthetic, and then you kind of glue it out as you go. In this case, because it's the shell and it's not going to make contact with most of my face, I'm going to glue it all along the outside edges here, And I'm going to put some glue right here in the mouth area where I know it's going to make contact. I mean, I'll put a little bit of glue around the outside edges of the eye because we're gonna wanna try to stick those down to our face as best as we can. But otherwise, yeah, it's pretty much the outsides in this case. So it is all spirit gummed up. I'm going to give it a minute or two to get tacky and then we can stick it right on our face. Oh, my nose itches, there's no way to get to it. Oh god. Alright. These edges are pretty thin already, but I would like to blend them a little bit. So I'm going to take the back end of our sponge and some liquid latex. Pour it into a cup, and I'm going to go over the edges of the mask as though we were blending out a bald cap. Over the seam. Don't go too far over because you got baby hairs over there and it will be the death of you. You'll be so sorry. Just blend it where you need to, right along the seam. I'm also going to take this opportunity to add some crepe wool to my own face. It's pretty much exactly the same as how we added crepe wool to this. Going to dip my brush in some spirit gum, dab it along some edges over here, wait for that to get tacky, and then we're gonna add the crepe wool. Simple as that. I got a little into work mode here and I forgot to keep talking, but I blended the edges by making the outer part of my face darker with purple undertones and then I painted it gray and a little yellow back on top. I also started to make my eyes darker, but I soon realized I needed Never thought I'd be putting on mascara in this face. But there's first time for everything. Then something felt like it was missing. Ah, yes, fluffy eyebrows. To anchor the tongue in place, I attached it to a wad of cotton and latex that I stuck in the bottom of the inside of Krampus's mouth area. Oh, and some of you might notice there's scab blood on the tongue. Can't do without it. I'm dirtying up the teeth near the gum line with a little bit of brown and yellow grease paints. And finally, putting on the Krampus crown. Oh yeah. The rest of my costume is just a couple yards of leftover hood fabric draped around my shoulders while wearing 2 backpacks underneath for that sexy back curve. And that is Krampus. Or Krampus, or anti-claus, or creepy Santa. Don't be too naughty, zombies. Oh, don't eat my tongue. Ah! Family portrait.
That looks great, baby.
She's trying to eat my tongue. You want to make out? Yes, yes. Have you been naughty this year? Or nice? This is gonna be all the rage in about 2 weeks. You'll see it all over the clubs. The Krampus.
Oh my god.
I fell.
Damn it.
Slow stare into the camera. It's so good. I got her jumping out of frame.